Hey there, guys. I wanted to drop in real quick to talk to you about a brand new offer that I've put together just for you. It truly is going to revolutionize the way that you do business. I am offering a 90-minute strategy session that's also going to give you a visual roadmap that will guide you over the next 6 months to be able to accomplish any author goal you want to make happen. So here's the thing, we all need some one-on-one guidance sometimes. And the whole idea behind this is to give you the one-on-one personalized experience that you're really craving and get you on the road to your greatest success, right? That's all we really want for you. So if you're curious about how this is going to work, head over to authorrevolution.org/visual map and learn more about it today.
Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Hi guys, welcome back to the Author Revolution podcast. This week, I'm really excited to be bringing on a guest who has been on the show before. She has some amazing insights, and of course, this interview is no different. I am bringing back, yes, that's right, Katie Cross. The last time Katie was on, we talked an awful lot about her perception of direct sales, how direct sales can really help authors. I met her in person originally at InkersCon last year, and now this time, we wanted to talk a little bit more about what it's like to have a very demanding production schedule, one where it's very consistent, you are doing a lot of things. She puts out a book a month, and not just a book, she puts out the ebook, the paperback, the audiobook, all happening every single month. So she's got her production schedule nailed down. And all of this is to say, she's also a mom who spends a lot of time with her kids, who puts and prioritizes them first. And so how is it she's able to maintain this schedule? How is she able to have her mindset in place, locked into the point where this becomes her only option? And so we talk a lot about mindset in this podcast episode because it was so crucial for her to be able to overcome some of her own hangups, but also to be able to leverage all of the stuff that was really kind of bottled up inside her, waiting to be let out. And so I'm going to let Katie obviously describe more of that in this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Well, hi, Katie. Welcome back to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm so excited to have you back. How have you been?
Oh, so good. I'm so excited to be back. This was such a fun time the first time that coming back, it's like, yes, this is going to be blessed.
I know. And we were hoping to do this like this time last year, and life got into the way. I know you had a friend who lost a kid. That was, my heart just goes out to you and to them. And it was like all the things. And so it's just lovely to finally be able to speak with you again, and hopefully on better terms. How, is your life calmed down a little bit?
I mean, I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, and summer started last week, so it's all chaos, right?
Right?
Yeah, it was wild in the fall. Things were pretty crazy, but we settled into a really good routine in the winter, and now we're just enjoying summer. So I'm excited to be back.
Right. Summer vacation is always interesting. If you hear a little knock on the door on my end, you're going to know why, because we've got our kids at home as well too.
I know, I'm actually hiding in my closet because we have a really small house, only 2 bedrooms, and one is our bedroom, one is my kid's bedroom, and the rest is just an open floor plan. So I was like, I'm gonna be in the closet 'cause so many kids home. So that's why if it looks like I'm in a closet, I am.
Yes.
And you and I were talking before we got started. That's where I started my audiobook career, within my closet.
For sure. This is where I narrate my audiobooks for sure.
Yeah. It just makes it so, I mean, it's makes so much sense. You got like that little cozy place. There's no weird echoes. It's fantastic. And hopefully no one can find you.
Yeah, I'm
Because,
like, I sort of feel like I can hide here a little bit. Like
right?
in my closet, hanging out by myself, bring
Right?
snacks, you know.
I love it. Well, last time you were here, we talked about how you leverage direct sales as an author, which, by the way, I love. I've begun utilizing myself. I have a Shopify store. It's fabulous. I am like so thrilled with it. And I kind of wanted to pick your brain on how, like this time, how that's been going, number one, and then how you continue to utilize it in such a great way when you're doing all the things like balancing work, being a mom, obviously having all the kids home. Like, what mindsets do you deploy to be this crazy, awesome publishing powerhouse?
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, so direct sales is, I mean, it's swimming right along, right? I really launched in like December 2019, January 2020. So we're 4 years and counting in,
Oh,
and it is the path for me, right? Like this is the way. So
yeah,
I think I will always probably emphasize direct sales in some manner. Just like everyone, I feel like we're all starting to feel the pinch of at least in the US, it's probably different elsewhere, but there's a pretty tough economy going on right now. Inflation is rising, prices are rising. Definitely seeing fewer sales across the board just because some of my readers are like, I'm just trying to pay rent right now, you know.
right.
Definitely feeling a little bit of a pinch, but all in all, the cool thing about direct sales is there are still readers out there that will just buy. I always say they buy my grocery list, right? Like they'll just buy whatever I put out because we forged a really great relationship with them, even through like a tough economics times. But yeah, I mean, it's going great. We're still doing direct sales. I did a little stint with some advertising testing through Q1. We've turned it off now just to give me some breathing room and get my VA some time to catch up on some stuff. And Facebook advertising is a little wonky. So I was like, nah, we'll take a little break and let the algorithm figure itself out. So I have absolutely no complaints. I just love the direct sales life. It's not perfect, but it's pretty sweet over here.
Right. I can't remember. Do you focus only on ebooks and audiobooks, or do you also do your paperback books as well through your direct store?
I do paper for sure. Yeah, I have a
Yeah,
lot of people that request and pre-order paper. I have like a chunk of people that every time I put a paperback pre-order, they just automatically pre-order whatever paperback. So that I try to submit the paperback pre-orders a week or so in advance of the actual launch so that it prints and ships so that they have it on launch day. And yeah, we love our paperbacks. And then I always I do a lot of in-person sales like at cons, and so I
yeah,
have to have the paperbacks to do that.
for sure, for sure. I love that. Do you bundle them as well, or do you just do like the solo ones? Like,
No,
do you
I
have
bundle
special
them
bundles?
too. Oh,
Yeah,
well, on my website, I don't really have a paperback bundle right now,
okay,
just because most of my people buy as the books launch,
right.
and bundles like for paperback have never done super well for me. But in at like cons and in-person events, I definitely have like awesome bundles.
Right. Well, and you do so many cool things. I mean, I was just a part of your Kickstarter that just wrapped up not super long ago. So
It was
that was
so awesome.
awesome.
It was
I
so
know,
fun to see your name. I was like,
right?
Carissa, awesome. Yeah,
How
we
did that
did a
go?
It was really good. So I have wanted to break into the Kickstarter space for a while, but I wanted to have like a higher level offer to do that instead of just like I think it's really cool that authors are like, "Hey, I want to publish this book. Let's do a Kickstarter." I think that's phenomenal. It's just a different form of direct sales in a way because
Yeah,
at least Kickstarter gives you have emails, you have direct like communication with the buyers, right? You're
right.
doing it through Kickstarter, but you are talking to your customers. So it's like a B2C business where it's business to consumer, but it's through a different website, which is kind of cool. And I love the Kickstarter audience because they are just willing to spend money on unknowns. And I've watched that for a while. Like I've had a Kickstarter account for years and years. And I've just been so amazed as I watch Kickstarters and I talk to my friends that these people they don't know are just dropping all this money on collector's editions or whatever. So it was the 10th anniversary of me launching my first book and my most popular book, Miss Mabel School for Girls. So I was like, let's do a Kickstarter. And my fans have been waiting for hardcovers for a long time. They've wanted a special edition for a while. So my children's book illustrator agreed to do illustrations. We did a deluxe illustrated edition of Miss Mabel's and we did the Kickstarter. We did about just barely under 25,000 with a goal, I think it
Wow.
was 12. Yeah, it's pretty
That
fun.
is so amazing.
I was really excited about it. Yeah. And so we did the special edition Kickstarter. It was amazing. I mean, you're like a business nerd like I am. And so what was fascinating to me is 50% of sales came from Kickstarter. So that was really cool proof that the platform itself brought new like people to me. And some of those people might
Right.
have been my established audience that had followed the Kickstarter, but there were people I didn't know that Kickstarter was bringing to me. So it's cool to prove that Kickstarter itself does a lot of groundwork and they bring new people. And those new people were buying at $100 average order value.
Wow.
$100 AOV is wild. Like I'm
That is
excited.
amazing.
Yeah, like when I'm doing sales on my website, I'm excited about a $20 AOV
Right.
because books have a low price point. They're like $7.99 to $9.99 or whatever. I price them at $7.99 on my website. So $100 AOV on an unknown author was just amazing to me. So that was really, really cool to prove out. So now we have I'm doing a new thing where every 6 months we're doing a new special edition in my Bianca books. And I'm just so that my readers can get these special editions and these hardcovers and I can meet new readers that way. But also it'll be fun to test out as an income stream if we just have a new Kickstarter every 6 months and if we can pull profit from it. I'm just testing like this is a cool way to potentially diversify income streams and I'm looking to see if it'll work, which is
I
it's
I
fun.
love
Like,
that.
it's a really fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you have that mentality too. Like I talk about that a lot on the podcast where it's like just come at it with curiosity, see how it's going to work. Like test it and see what's going to happen and maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you or maybe you think it's not for you and you just have to unlearn what you've learned already to relearn it and see what happens this time around. You
Oh,
know?
that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
The coming at it with curiosity and not judgment is a huge mindset.
Mm,
Um, that can be really hard to overcome at first because we feel like judgment protects us.
right. Right. And we think when we've locked in the knowing of something that maybe it's always going to stay the same, but sometimes things shift, like audiences shift, the way that people purchase shifts, the way that we are and the way that we come about our career shifts. It's like we're different people than we were even 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 months ago, whatever. And so when
Yes.
you come at it from a different angle, sometimes it's just like, why did this not work last time? This is so great.
Well, and there's so many data points in a single test that you don't have the answer for, right? So we're testing this Kickstarter potentially like income stream out, but I'm not going to actually like weigh judgment on it for 4 books because it's so hard to say with one book. With 2 books, you have some repetitive data points. With 3 books, you're getting there. But with 4, and that's like the 4 volume set that I have or 4 book volume that I have, that's when I can say, okay, we've seen this data, we've seen it track like this, we've accounted for potential just like errors or like weird market fluctuations. We can say if this is actually a realistic thing, as long as I'm not losing money every time, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're onto something there. And we always assume that because it was, it will be, and that's just not true.
Right. Well, yeah. And it's like those authors who come at their new launches and they're like, it'll be fine, but it's not going to do a whole lot because none of my other series have done a whole lot. None of my other books have cut. You know what I mean? That the mentality. I'm like, but this could be your breakout one. What if it was the right one? What if this is the one that hit just right? Like, get excited for that. Be envisioning that. Why are you already putting yourself on the wrong path before you get started?
Yeah, it's like I've had people say it to me before, and all I've said is, yeah, probably because you say so. Like
Oh,
if you're gonna like approach it with that sort of like all my others is so bad this probably will too, then you're already sabotaging your own success because there are
yeah.
probably so many opportunities you're not taking or noticing because you're already in a mindset of this isn't going to work.
Yep.
So it really like cuts down what is possible and what your success is. And I think we do that. We think it's self-preservation. We think we're like trying to get ourselves ready for the inevitable crush that's coming, but actually we're just creating the monster that we're afraid of. It's so interesting.
Right. It is so interesting, isn't it? It's that law of attraction in motion where all of a sudden we're bringing to us the thing that we're fearing because we're so interested in looking at the wrong side of the spectrum that we're like, oh, this thing might happen. And so then we look for the evidence of it happening and
We find
validate
it.
ourselves. Yeah,
Your brain is a great evidence seeker. Like
it
we are great
is.
evidence seekers, and you will find evidence for whatever you want to believe, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
True.
my gosh. Okay, so I got to know how many books do you publish? You're publishing so many books. How many books do you have now?
We tried counting for a podcast I did 2 days ago, and I was like, I don't know. It ended up being somewhere between 70 and 80 titles. And titles encompass everything from short stories to novels to novelettes. Like it's kind of the whole range. And the reason it's that way is because of the structure that I've chosen to connect with my business. So I write under the fantasy world of Alcara, so it's all the same umbrella. And I tried clean contemporary romance. I have a 10-book series and I have like a 5-book chick lit series and some like short stories that I had done with those for the readers. But I just threw like 2 years ago, I can't remember, a couple years ago. I threw all of those, it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I threw all of those into KU and I took them
Okay.
down everywhere else. And then I just stopped. I got rid of the email list, the Facebook page. I stopped supporting it. So they're still out there, but I don't do anything with them because I found that splitting my focus between two genres was sabotaging the success of either. And I didn't really want to be in the fantasy or the romance world. So I have all those titles, and then I have over 50 titles in Alcara. I have something called the Reader Request Series, which is where readers can. I have a Google form that's always open, and like every 6 or so months, I send it out and I say, what short story would you love me to write? And then my assistant will look at that and we mine the trends and we see what people are most excited about. And then sometimes we'll even put out a survey and have them vote. And then I write those short stories under the Reader Request Series, and they're all about 12,000 words or less. And so like I have those are there's 10 of those. So those are short story titles. They're all about 10 to 12,000 words. And then I have like some novellas that are anywhere from 10 to 40,000 words. I have novels that are 115 to 80,000. You know, like it's kind of all over the place based on what my readers are asking for. But right now my current business model, at least through the end of this year, and I've been doing this for over 2 years now, almost 3, is where I'm launching a book a month. Some of that was novellas at first. While I figured out my progress, I would do a new novel every 3 months and then novellas in between. But right now I do a new full-length fantasy novel the first Friday of every month in audiobook, paperback, and ebook.
That is amazing.
I know.
That was so, like, when I heard that at InkersCon last year, I was like, what?
I know.
That is amazing. Like, what? This woman is crazy, but awesome.
It sounds really wild. And even every time I say it all the time. I'm like, that sounds pretty crazy. When I like say it out loud, I don't even write as fast as others. I know that there are romance authors that are kicking out new books like every 2 weeks or more.
That's amazing too to me. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I think the genre conventions can work for or against you in that. But I do that because I love writing. Like, I am such a stupid nerd for writing. Like, I do and love to write 6 to 8 hours. Like, I will be on my computer 6 to 8 hours writing a day when my kids are in school.
Right.
Obviously not happening right now. But yeah, there are days when I'm fingers to keyboard writing, and I don't mean businessing. I mean actual like writing for up to 6 hours. And I love it. I end the day with energy. Like, I'm not like exhausted. I'm not dead on my feet. I just really love being in Alcara. I love developing the characters. So that's first and foremost why I did it. I also wanted to do it every month as a cash flow generator. I wanted to try the rapid release. I wanted to see when I launch products, people buy. And so maybe I could run cash flow so I don't have to advertise, and then have a slow growth audience goal where I'm not trying to rapidly pull in leads through ads, but I'm just trying to like build out a like established cash flow with the audience I have, and then have them help me do a slow growth system where we gradually see increases over time while I'm launching these new products, which then buys me this back catalog to have as assets to then produce more income streams, and diversification was kind of my long-term picture here, because it got me writing, interacting with readers, and creating a cash flow that's sustainable. So that's kind of been the goal. And then on the side, we'll try out these like Kickstarters, or I have a audiobook production company that I'm talking to that potentially wants to license some rights and pay me to narrate some books of mine. So, it's like we're able to then diversify with all the content that I have. So that's kind of this rapid release model.
Do you record your own audiobooks as well, or do you use like an AI program? How do you do your audiobooks then?
So like a couple years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was almost insolvent. I was rock bottom, crashing stuff into the ground. Things were really ugly. I started my wit's end, like advertising just sucked it out of me. And there's a long story back there, but basically I realized I've got to change what I'm doing. And so that's when I started looking at my data, and I said, when I publish books, I make money. So how do I publish books faster? And also I have this huge back catalog. So I reached out to some readers and I said, what works in what I'm doing? What can I do better? And a lot of them were like, you don't have all of the books we want in audio. And I was like, yeah, because it's like so expensive, right? And it's like, it would have been over $100,000 to get my back catalog back up. And it would have been years for another audiobook narrator to do that. I would have had to basically like taken an audiobook narrator and like used up all their time. If I wanted the same person, then you have to find them. And anyway, and I was like, they're like, well, why don't you narrate your audiobooks? And I was like, I'm a writer. And someone challenged me on it. And so I just dove into the mindset. And it was exactly what you said a few minutes ago. I was like, I don't do this. This is not how we do it. Like, I'm not a
Right.
narrator. But I realized, I could connect better with my readers. If they heard my voice, they would build a connection with me instantly. And I loved that. I would be able to bring the voices and books to life in a way that I saw them. And therefore, I was trying to convey them through words. And I could also do it through this voice acting, which was really daunting to me. But then I decided I also have this like treasure trove of product, like wealth, just sitting on the table, right? I just left on the
Right.
table. So I found a couple Udemy courses about voice acting, audiobook mastering, narrating, like all of this stuff. I just deep dived into it. I found a professional. His name is Arthur. I love him. He would get on Zoom with me and I would practice and he would tweak me and we'd tweak my settings and I'd send him samples. We did all this stuff back and forth until finally he's like, I think you're ready to just do it. And so I did. I just started narrating and I was able to catch up my back catalog so that every single book I offer is an audiobook. That's like 30, 40 titles.
Wow.
And I created a system where I launch in paperback, ebook, and audio so that every single book comes out at the same time. Because one of the complaints I had from my readers was so many authors, the audio just comes out when it comes out. And as audio listeners only, we never know when we're going to get. So it's hard to trust an author. And I was like, when I heard the words, it's hard to trust an author, I was like, oh, that's an opening for me. Like, how can I build trust so that they're always coming back and bringing their people because they know they can trust me? And so that's what I did. And now I'm 2.5 years in, and the audiobook process is probably my favorite, like
Really?
part of the writing process. Even though I love the writing so much, I think it's a step away from the writing, so it feels like it gives me a break. But I get to bring the characters to life, and I'm in my closet, so no one really sees my like wackadoodle facial expressions or like when I get so frustrated because I have to repeat the same line like 5 times or
Right.
whatever. You know?
All the swear
It's
words
like,
that come out when you do
yes,
that.
it's really or like like I do accents, and so I have to like stop and practice and re-listen and stop and practice, and then like I have to make sure that if I haven't done the accent in like 5 days, I have to go listen, practice it, so I'm like trying to keep consistency and stuff. So yeah, it's it's been super fun process. I really love it. I'm actually doing my own mastering now. Arthur taught me how to do the mastering. So the whole process is mine, which has actually worked a lot because it's opened up some opportunities for me. And now I have this whole backlog of audio that I'm able to start divvying out as assets because I can prove that people are interested in buying my books. And so I have these companies that are coming to me and saying, hey, we want to license your book for 7 years. Or, like I've just been talking to Spotify and a whole bunch of other things because I have all of this stuff. And a lot of audiobook places are like, you do an audiobook a month because that's even more unusual than an ebook a month. And it
Sure.
just gives me diversification power, which I really love.
That's amazing. Okay, so now I need to know. I have to understand, what does a day in the life of Katie look like in the process of writing these books, like creating the audiobooks, mastering the audiobooks? How does this go? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah. Okay, so let's assume my kids are in school.
Okay, let's
We'll
assume.
do like a day in life of Katie. Kids in school edition. So I get up with my kids, get them to the bus, and I come home usually at 7:45. I'm home, and I give myself until about 8 o'clock. But usually at 8 o'clock, I stand a lot to work. I don't sit a lot to write. It depends on what my current deadline is. I normally have like 2 to 3 deadlines in a given day, like in a given time period that I have different deadlines that are sort of like I'm just aware of. If I have a writing deadline coming up, then I'll probably dedicate 8 until 10 to writing. I'll just stand or sit and write for that long, and then I always go for a hike around 10 to 11 with my dogs. So for an hour hike, come back, I work until lunch, like 12 to 1, and then usually after I eat lunch and I've written for about 3 to 4 hours, then I'll come into here and I'll record for at least an hour. So I almost always, at least because I've been catching up my audio is all caught up. It has been for about a year. There's still a few things I'm now re-recording. So I had different voice actors, but now I'm going back through and re-recording them so that all of my books are in my voice and it's really consistent and predictable for my readers. I do at least an hour a day, but like I was just under deadline this last week because I had to kick an audiobook to my proofing team. So I was doing sometimes 2 hours. And then once that's done, I'll go back out. And it's normally about 2 or 3 o'clock at that point. My kids get home at 4. I take my kids to the bus. My neighbor brings them home. So then I'll write or I'll do business and email for a couple hours, like if I need it. So I try to do all the writing and creative first, and then I put the business stuff off until the afternoon when I'm more tired. if
Right.
I am tired. The audiobook process is more draining for me than the writing process, and I think it's just because I'm talking out loud and I have headphones on.
Mm.
And I'm doing more emotive acting as I like kind of get into the story and I have to like stop and listen and that kind of thing. And then I'm done, close my computer, done for the day. And I hang out with my kids and I run my house and I have fun with my family. And then I get up and I do it again the next day. If I don't have an audio project, which does happen, then I will just write from 8 to 4. And I'll have like, I write outside on my porch a lot when the weather's good. I do an hour hike. Sometimes I'll go stack firewood or something. I'll kind of like clean my house in between writing sprints. But there are days where I've very happily written for at least 7 hours. And it's really fun.
To me, it just sounds like it's really just the consistency of your routine. Like, you know, what to be expected. And so therefore you don't deviate from it because you've already locked in what has to get done. Does that sound
Yes.
accurate?
I
Yeah.
always know the target. I think that was a mindset to learn too. It's like not just have, well, I need to finish this draft. It's I need to finish this draft by this day
Yeah.
because someone's waiting for it. Because that makes a difference. Like right now, the draft I'm on, I promised my editing team to have it by the 10th. But before I was like, I just need to get finished. I was like, no, I gotta lock this in. And now I'm like, oh, like I gotta get that done. Like it's the 6th. So it like kind of drives that, okay, I gotta focus on this because I've, like I have to get like certain things have to move into place for them to work out. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's the other mindset here that's really key that was the game changer for me. I mean, there's a lot I had to learn, but the game changer for me was I took on a lot of people's beliefs and fears about this process. So many people said to me like, I would hate writing if I wrote that much, or I can't do that because my writing would suck. That was another one that hit really close to home is people like, I couldn't write that much because my writing would suck. Because I guess the idea is that they pour so much of their energy that they're just like putting words down because they're trying to meet a word goal instead of actually caring
Mm.
about the draft. And I sat with that for a long time. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is my fear. Like, I think I've picked this up from someone else. But then I asked myself, so I was a pediatric nurse before I became a writer. And I remember asking myself, like, this doesn't make sense because I would work 18-hour shifts. There was one time during RSV season, I worked 12-hour to 14-hour night shifts every night for 2 weeks solid. And I never got worse as a nurse. Like I remember thinking
Right.
like I would work 12-hour shifts and sometimes I'd be tired and be ready to go home. But I was never like, I'm never doing this again, F this. I'm a terrible nurse. I can't get this IV. So I remember thinking like, I don't know if that's true. And the moment I questioned, I don't know if this is true, I realized I had been mentally holding myself back from being able to write for long stretches of time.
Ah,
And it sort of unlocked it for me. Like, I don't have to hold on to that belief from someone else, right? And
right.
this is what I get the most feedback on is so many people say to me, I would never be able to write that much. I would hate it. Or I would never be able to write that much. My writing would suck. And that is okay and maybe true for them. The problem here was not that they were saying it to me. The problem was that I was picking it up and making it my truth. And it wasn't because I freaking
Yeah.
love writing. So once I unlocked that and I was like, no, it's different for me. This is where I'm happiest. I also said to my editing team, you have got to be 1000% honest about everything in these stories because we are proving out whether I can do a book a month with high quality. Like the stories cannot suffer. They cannot suffer. If it's not working, we'll scale back to every 2 months. But I need to know if the stories are getting better or worse. And they
Oh,
knew I
that's
had
so
very
key.
explicit instructions. And they were very honest. There were some things that were like, this really isn't working, blah, but it was specific to the story. Overall, they said, your writing is getting better with every book. Like these are so much better than what you did before. So that's when I knew I had just been holding on to someone else's fear.
Right. Well, and that's so key. I talk a lot about that with just like manifestation stuff too. Like when we started talking about like the millionaire author destiny kind of concept, the reason I chose that phrase was because it was such a trigger phrase. People were like, "I'll never make $1 million as an author." Like like millionaire was just like something that would make them cringe internally. And it was like, but does that have to be true? Like,
Yes.
does that have to be true? Question it. And that's just I found that to be such a valuable pause moment where if you can actually stop and think and ask yourself that question, it's going to unlock some things for you. And you're going to be like, maybe yes, but maybe no, maybe it's not actually true. And if it's not true,
Yes.
then what gets to be more true for you? It's so
Yes.
good. Yeah,
And I
that's so
think
cool.
it can be scary to like question the assertions, right? To be
Hmm.
like, no, this is not true for me. Like, no, I'm not a narrator. But then like to be willing to say, but I physically could be. Like
Right.
I speak, therefore, like I could be. And that willingness to say, well, maybe is really what took me into the path I'm so grateful for today, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for the stabilization that being in the audiobook market has given me. And I think really you don't necessarily have to have the answers, but just that willingness to say, well, maybe. And sometimes the maybe is gonna be like, nope, definitely not. Reaffirm to that.
Uh,
But maybe it's like, well, maybe I could. And then you find a different path, which is really fun
yeah.
and really cool.
Yeah, because sometimes it just means taking that step forward, just coming again at curiosity and like making a decision just to try. And that decision to try can open up so many new things. I mean, we talk about this a lot where we're trying to manifest things. And sometimes when we're in the beginning stages of it, it's just little steps first in order to, and you just keep making those little steps until all of a sudden you look back and you're like, holy cow, I've got 80 books in my backlist
Yeah. Yes.
in 3 different versions. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
amazing.
I when I ask people ask me, especially parents ask me a lot of advice like how do you do it, how do you maintain this, and really my overwhelming response is, this might even segue us a little bit, but it's the big or little things add up to big things over time. I cannot overstate how grateful I am when all of those little things suddenly add up to a finished manuscript. That when I look back, I'm like, if I hadn't done the little moments, I'd still be weeks behind where I am right now. And I'm so grateful in that moment that those little things added up to something big. It's huge, right? It all matters. It all counts.
Absolutely. So let's take that around to the whole being a mom with a crazy schedule. Like, how do you balance all of this stuff? I mean, you're a mom, you're a spouse, you're a friend, you're an entrepreneur. Like, how do you keep this production schedule and just still stay sane?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to big rocks, little sand, right? You know, the story of like you have a jar and you can't get all the sand and all the rock. Like you can't put the sand in and then get the big rocks. You have to put the big rocks and then sand. I think I just know my big rocks. And
Sure.
it's always like health and family first, right? Like I still work out, I hike my dogs, I take care of my kids. We have like one-on-one time with each child. I like help run the house. So I know my big things. And then I would just really sort of have like an organized approach to it. I know like we're going to do laundry on the weekends. It's a Saturday and Sunday thing. So I don't worry about it during the week, right? My kids have started doing chores. So I know that 30 minutes of my day is going to be teaching them how to do the chores and letting it be imperfect. That's the thing. Like as a
Yes.
mom, it's fine that the spoons and the forks are crossed in the drawer. I don't need to stop and take the time to fix them, right? And I don't want my kids to see that either. So it's like, yeah, the floor could probably have been vacuumed better, but I'm just going to let it be good enough because my 8-year-old did it or whatever. So I think letting go of expectations of perfection has been really powerful for me. And then really the winner here for keeping this production schedule in the midst of all this is I just know exactly when I'm supposed to be where. So this is what I mean by that. Assume a 4-week month pretty much every month. Anything more than that is going to be bonus for me. The first week of the month, all that I know is I'm going to be finalizing a plot and audiobook recording, and then I'll sprinkle in some like email scheduling and business stuff. The second week of the month, I am first drafting. That's it. Like I'll spend an hour catching up with readers, answering emails, assigning tasks to my team a day, if even that much, but the rest is just first drafting. And I do anywhere from 10 to 15,000 words a day when I first draft, because I'm also writing up to 6 to 7 hours, right? And
Right.
sometimes I can do that in 4 hours and then I have some time to whatever. The third week of the month is second drafting, and that's where I go clean it up. That one's my longest. So sometimes that spills into the fourth week. And then the fourth week, I do a big overall third draft. Usually takes about 3 days because I'm zipping through it. And then on the 25th of every month, the 25th, that is when I send my book to editing. And on the 25th of the month, all of my edits from the previous month are ready to go. So I either start doing those edits so that by the first week of the next month, I'm ready to audiobook record, or I'm like editing and I'm plotting, I'm catching up on business stuff, I'm taking a break. I have about a 5 to 6 day span usually where I can have a lot of fluidity and say what needs to be done, what's a priority, because I don't have to be drafting right now.
Mm.
That's kind of what it has looked like when school is in session, right?
Right.
But my kids are, and I also have had up until now like younger kids. So you may have like a 3 and a 4 year old. Like my 4 year old did t-ball, but that wasn't a big deal. But now I have kids that are like we're looking at like football and baseball and soccer. So we have all these other activities. So next year it's going to be different for me, and I think this is important because next year I'm going to probably back off my publishing schedule so it's every other month that I publish because I just have a little more mom juice I have to give to the kids for after school
Right.
stuff and still run the house. So I'll just back down a little bit and say, yeah, I just know now I'm going to have to give more time into my kids, which is they are number one, right? So that's why I said I'm doing a book a month through the end of this year because we're stacked to be able to make that true. But in 2025, we'll probably be doing something a little different. Like the Kickstarters actually buy me time
Sure.
because my VA can do up a lot of that setup, right? The Kickstarters buy me some time, and then just depending on some announcements that we have rolling out, we'll kind of see what it is. But that, I mean, that's basically the gist. Like I know when and where the big things have to happen, and I'll be like, okay, it's the second week of the month. I'm halfway through the second week. I'm only a quarter of the way through the second draft. I either have to pick up the pace or I'm gonna have to pick up the slack in the third week. And I think I can do that because blah 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 blah. And so I just in generally can like look at something and know like I'm ahead of or behind the game and then react accordingly.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that's helpful also.
That's so good. Now, do your kids know about like your routine and your schedule and like what mom does so that they have kind of a grasp and concept on that as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so well, they kind of do. Like I try to be very clear like what I so now that it's summer, all bets are off, right? And my
Yep.
goal is to like really enjoy summer with them and be outside in the mountains. I live in the mountains of Montana, literally in the mountains of Montana. We're at the end of a dirt road up on the mountains, and we want to enjoy this with them. So in the morning, I wake up at like 6 or 7, just whenever I naturally wake up, and the kids know I'm going to work for a couple hours, and I usually try to get my writing in. And then I'll tell them, like, I'm going to work until 9 o'clock, and then it's mom time. And we'll do mom time until like 2 or 3. So we're doing our fun activity for the day. We're playing, we're like hiking our dogs, we're just doing whatever. And then when they're starting to get tired, because we play outside a lot and we have screen time, they know that when they're on screens, mom is also on a screen. So we all do screen time together for like an hour. And that's where I'll catch up
Sure.
with my team or whatever. And then I after the hour we close the computer and it's back to like whatever it is we're doing. And then usually in the evening after I put them to bed around 8, I'll log in and get like another hour in if I'm not too tired. But if I'm too tired, I'll go back to bed. So or I'll go to bed. So
Right.
yeah, it's
I
very
love
like
that you flow with it though. I love that concept
yeah,
because there's so many people that get rigid about like what their schedule should look like. And then if they get sick or someone in their family gets sick or if their kids have something that goes on, they feel like they're falling behind because they haven't given themselves permission to allow that ebb and flow of like how it gets to work for them. You know what I mean? It's so
yes. And
good.
I've been there. Like I've totally been stressed out because I should have been here and it's the third week and I'm really in the second week's work and the kids were sick and whatever. And my husband sort of was just like, is this worth it if you're like so miserable? Like, is it really doable if you're so stressed about meeting deadlines? And it was cool that he asked that because it really forced some introspection so that I could recalibrate expectations of my mindset into how can I approach this with a little more flow and not such rigidity, right? And then it actually for me came down to trust. Like I just had to trust that either A, everything was going to be fine if I didn't hit the deadline. Like these are books, no one's dying. Or B, I'll just make it happen. So I have 4 days to finish this book and have it ready for edits. And I haven't even started the third draft, which is usually where the third draft is going to take about 4 days. And I'm looking at that and I'm just like, I'm not going to stress about this. Like, I'm choosing not to stress about this because I trust myself to get it done. And usually going into it with that energy versus the stress, Terry, got to get this done, blah, blah, blah. The same amount of work gets done, but with a lot less energy output. And I probably write better with just a better energy of trust. And
Absolutely.
that has been, it seems woo woo. Like, I'll tell my husband, like, I trust myself to get it done. It's fine. And it usually
Yeah.
does get done. And like, what's one more
Yeah.
day? If I tell my team, like, hey, I'm going to do it on the 11th instead, no one's like got a gun to my head, right? So it's gonna be fine. Like everything's gonna be
Right.
fine.
Well, and I think you're definitely leveraging the Parkinson's law where work expands or contracts to fit the time allotted for it, right? And so if you trust yourself, you know that like you can go into that extra day, you're gonna make it happen. It's like all those teenage college kids that are like waiting until the last minute, like the night before a big paper is
Yes.
due, and they actually make it happen. 25 pages long, but yeah, they somehow manage it. It's the same
Exactly. It's
concept.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all mindset. Like at this point, the thing that I've learned over and over again is success is almost always just mindset. Like it's
It
almost
absolutely is. I
always.
100% agree with you. So what is your number one mindset strategy that you deploy? I mean, I think we've covered a lot of them, but like, what is your number one recommendation or mindset strategy that you could not live without or think that other authors probably need to leverage more?
Okay, this is the hardest question I always ask, and I'm always so grateful. But what I have made myself learn how to do and try to do with some grace is to ask people that are not me, hey, I think I'm having a mindset issue. Can you tell me from your side what you see? And by example, for Q1, it was a stressful, kind of crazy Q1. I had some stuff to figure out. There's some cash flow problems. And I basically said to my consultant and my bookkeeper, I said, I think I'm noticing some fear-based decisions. I think I'm having some mindset issues. What do you see from your side that I can do to improve? And to ask that question, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you gotta be ready for like the feedback and like our egos take a blow, but they were kind of like, do you really want to know? And I was like, I want to improve. Like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be stressed. I want to do better. And I think I'm sabotaging myself. I just don't see it. But that has to be what's happening because I don't understand. And they're like, yep. I just like laid it out, right? I was like, oh, I just took it and sat with it. Like I think asking outside of yourself, right? Like people that you trust, that you can explain in a very short sentence or explanation. This is what's going on. I think I have a mindset issue. Can you give me insight from what you see of me? Was really powerful. But then, second to that, and sort of in conjunction with it, is you have to be willing to sit with what they say. And that doesn't mean that they have your answer. That means they are making observations from outside of you that you can leverage to get perspective. But then you sitting with it, accepting your imperfections, figuring out your best path and trusting that you'll find it is really the next step. And that's what I did. So I
Right.
got that feedback from my bookkeeper, from my consultant, and then from my husband, right?
Yeah.
And like that one's scary too because he's so close to me and it's all done with love, of course. Like most people understand like I'm trying to improve and not be judgmental and just work on this. So I need your help to do that. And usually it's done with great love. And then I sit with it and have to breathe through it and feel the emotions and then decide the next step after that. I think that's my biggest mindset trick is
Love
I
that.
think straight on confrontation.
Yeah, it kind of is in a sense. So I don't know if you're willing to share what you learned from like that last example that you gave, but was there any like powerful insights that came through where you're like, oh my gosh, I really didn't see myself doing that thing?
Totally. It was control, right? So I
Okay.
said to them, I was like, I think I'm struggling with control, but I'm not really sure. And I'm, I mean, to be like, let's be totally like transparent here. This will be so great for this podcast. I said, I was like, I feel like there's a perception of success that I put into the world that is true, but doesn't feel true. But people believe things of me that aren't real. And I don't know how to
Yeah.
control that facade. Like I try to be very open and vulnerable, but people are going to believe whatever they want of me and that feels out of control. And I was like, I'm just
Sure.
trying to write books, right? And
Yeah.
they sort of gave to me, they're like, I definitely had a control issue. I just didn't see it until they're like, yep, you're trying to control this, 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 and these are the results, and this is where it's failing. And I was like, oh,
Ooh.
oh, thank you. And then one of the things that they said was basically, you hold too much weight in what your people's perception of you is. You're trying to
Mhm.
control how people perceive you, and that's insanity. And you just need to like let go of what people care about you, which is such obvious advice. But when you're looking at it from a perspective of like being in the public eye, people forming assumptions about you based on how you present yourself, even when you're trying to be like the most transparent, open, that advice takes on a lot more ballast. And so
Yeah.
I realized I had to get to a place where I didn't actually care what anyone thought of me, right? Like what they think of me is their business, not mine, and not feel like I had to control public perception of whatever. Like as popularity increases, as more people read my books, I don't have control over that. I don't have control over what
Yeah.
people say or think about me, but I was trying to, right? And
Ah,
so
sure, sure.
yeah, and so it was just like learning how to sit with that and let go of that control and understand that this isn't my business what they think of me. You know, I mean, obviously, like I'm
I
not.
love that this is your lesson this year too, because I've talked about it on the podcast before, but my word of the year is let go. So I have a
Oh,
bracelet
cool.
that's let
Yeah.
go. So it's like, because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a double Virgo. And so I have control issues at times as well. So I'm like,
Yeah.
let it go. Yeah. Trying to remember the song. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, just trying to like chill out and just let things be and trust that it gets to work out and trust that, like you said, their perceptions don't matter. My perceptions don't even really matter unless I am putting myself on the wrong path. You know what I mean? So it's like
Exactly. Yeah,
focus
exactly.
back around. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
a gut check because when anyone tells you you care too much what people think about you, it's not a compliment, right? And it was done from a place of love, and I had to really sit back and be like, that's not true. Maybe it's true. Holy shit, it's totally true. Like,
Right?
oh
Damn
no.
it. Damn it.
Yes, and like sit in that process for a bit and like understand, oh, they want the best for me. They love me and I asked for this. Right?
Yeah.
And then like dig deeper, like why am I trying to control? And there were actual things like in the company that I was trying to control that my bookkeeper was like, why are you doing this? Like, why aren't you giving this to Samantha, my VA? And I was like, I don't know.
Because this is the way I've always done it. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Right. Like, and I
Yeah.
was like, well, she's so busy. And she's like, but have you asked? And I was like, so I like went to
Yeah.
my VA and I was just very humble. I was just like, I just had a whole dose of truth given to me. And I think all of this is correct. And I just want to ask what you think of this too. So I basically put the same to my VA and I said, this is the control that I'm struggling with. This is why. This is what I want, how I want to improve. What's your side of this? And she shared it with me. And then I was like, what do you want to do more of? And it turns out I was assuming things totally wrong to reaffirm my own viewpoint, right? Like I was like, oh, she's
Right.
so busy. And she's like, I could totally take on more hours. I'm not that busy. I was like, so that's how our brain finds the truth that we want to affirm the viewpoint,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
It really
totally.
does. It really does. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And it
So
it sounds like so the lesson I'm also hearing here too is like there is a fine balance between seeing the need for control, like having your weeks divvied out where you know your routine, you know how things are going to work, you know if you're ahead of the schedule or behind the schedule and all the things. There's a power in that because it holds you accountable and keeps you on track. But there's also that line where you cross over where you get to be too much control. So there's a balance
absolutely.
between having both. And I think it's so powerful to be in that balance because you need to know when to let it go and give it to someone else or have someone else help or get more feedback like you just said, but still know your flow so that those boundaries, because I think for people like us probably having those boundaries, having that schedule, it feels good too. It keeps us like our minds happy. We're not like going, I have no idea where we are right
Yes.
now. I'm stuck, I'm
Yes.
lost, I'm whatever. It keeps us balanced in that place. But it does get to the point where if you're not willing to, I don't know, shift things or,
Yes.
check your assumptions, then
The
you're going to
other
be,
what I learned too is that I know when I'm in a healthy mindset around like, well, I need to know where I am in my process so I can establish realistic deadlines, right? That's
yeah,
healthy. That's
yeah,
fair. But there's a shadow side to everything, right? So that
yeah,
balance that you're talking about, for me, I found that my rumble strip, so to speak, I know when I'm kind of veering out of the lane is when I'm making decisions from a place of fear.
yes.
That's when control, I've slipped out of my lane and I'm leaning toward control because I'm afraid of something,
Mm,
right? Or I'm letting go so much that I just don't even make deadlines anymore because I don't care what happens. That means I'm also afraid and I'm trying to like let go. So for me,
yeah,
that one hardly ever happens. It's more like this, like fear-based. I got to take over and make sure everything happens exactly the way I want, which actually was actually not good for my company. Like they were saying, you're steering it into the ground by trying to hold the control when you don't let anyone else speak into these things. Like you need to stand up and be instead of sit down and do. And that was like
mm,
the lesson I took away. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're so right. And then as I've like said, yeah, maybe they're right, and I've looked at it and I've sat with it and I took time, I was like, not only were they stupid right, but they were so like on target. I was going to run my company into the ground if I
right.
kept going on that path. And allowing other people to breathe into the work and to take responsibility opens me up to stand up and be more than sit down and do like the things that someone else can
Yeah,
do so that I can always be Katie and like put that forward front for the readers that need me, right? And for myself. So it's taken months to kind of iron out and realize just how right they were. And it was a very humbling experience that I'm extremely grateful for because it has changed how I look at how I look at myself and how I look at the world. So now there's a great deal more fluidity in terms of, do I need like, there's a great deal more trust, I should say. So instead of like, I'm going to create the cash flow I want through monthly launches, I'm now stepping back and be like, I'm going to let go of some of those reins and make space for the unexpected. Right. So, and I think
Yes.
people love this, right? Where I'm just going to trust that if I don't launch every month, it'll be fine. So I don't have a scheduled launch for August. And I normally would have been like, we got to find something. We got to get that. But now it's like, actually, I have a whole bunch of irons in the fire and there might be opportunities I don't see. So I'm just going to like let August be open and just see what magic can happen.
Yes, I love
Trust
that.
that, yeah, trust that even if I don't have a release in August, that maybe the lack of a release will build up greater sales for September. So it would make up for it.
Right.
Or like, something great is coming that I didn't see, or maybe nothing and it was fine. Right?
It's
Like,
so interesting that you're saying this right now because I just had the most crazy, wild, like manifestation type situation happen today. There was a so back in February on my anniversary, my husband and I went to Barnes and Noble. That's of course where we go because that's what we
yeah.
do to celebrate, right? And Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass, for some reason was calling to me. I'm like, I don't know why. I've got You're a Badass at Making Money, but I need this book.
Yes.
And of course, I started reading it, and then I read You're a Badass at Making Money again, and I felt this call to have to be on her to see if she had coaching, basically. And so she had a coaching thing that was opening up in 2 weeks in April, and I was like, I'm in. I didn't even know why. Like I was just open to like whatever was being led. And so then I went into her first like group coaching session, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. Like I just really, because I had no questions. Like everything
Yeah.
she was being asked were questions that I usually get asked in my own courses. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know why I'm here. And in the same time frame of about February, I started doing like solo meditations where I was just myself, just binaural beats, and that's it. And I got the hit right after that call that I was supposed to, like, the whole reason this was all lined up was because I'm supposed to ask Jen Sincero live. I couldn't text her. This was my brain telling me in my meditation. I have to ask her live on one of those calls to come onto the podcast. And that's why I was like drawn to her in the whole thing. And it was like, it was very clear. Like I saw it visually in my head, and that the answer is already yes. Okay, because I promised my listeners on one of the podcast episodes that any hit that comes about, I'm gonna take the nudge and I'm gonna see what happens, right? So it was like next week I got all excited to go. I was like ready to ask her the question. I was like 3 away when the call ended, and we had to wait until the following the following call. So third call, I'm like third up on the thing, and I finally get to ask her the question. I ask her, and she's like, "Oh, okay, we'll send an email to Nate, and I'll take a look and whatever." A week went by, 2 weeks went by, nothing happened. Then I realized, oh, I sent it to the wrong email. I sent it to Nate and not the team, right? So I reaffirmed, resent, and just in case you didn't see it because I sent it to the wrong email. And then Nate responded, and he was like, "Yep, okay, great. She'll take a look at it and get back to you." Another week went by, another week went by, another week went by. We've been sitting here like for 4 weeks, I think, since I asked that question. This morning, she finally signed up for the podcast. She's coming on.
No way.
So she is, yeah. And so I'm like, sometimes you just gotta trust it. Like you just follow those nudges and just know that it's something interesting, exciting is gonna happen to you, and it's gonna come at the right time. So August to me sounds like the same thing for you. Something amazing's coming. You don't know what it's gonna be yet, but it's gonna be epic. You
Oh my
know?
gosh, Jen Sincero.
Yeah.
Oh, my
I know,
heart. She
right?
was like my OG mindset person. Like
I
You Are a
know.
Badass and then You Are a Badass at Making Money
Yeah.
is like my first deep dive into that world, and I love her. So
I love her
congratulations.
too.
That's so
Thank
exciting.
you. Thank you.
Oh,
But
that's amazing.
it was just like I had no, like when I started, I had no like no inclination, nothing about asking her this question. But it was an opportunity that came through a meditation that I was just open for, scared out of my mind to ask her that question live because everyone else is asking, how do I manifest blah, blah, whatever. And I'm like, guess what, Jen? I have to ask you to come on my show because that's what I'm supposed to be here for.
Absolutely. Well, I
Yeah.
think what I love most about your story is that you trusted a timeline that wasn't yours.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm trying to lean into more now as I like understand the relationship that I have with control and like I'm letting it go as you have
Yes.
for your year. And I that forces me to then say, well, if I'm not going to hold to that, I have to hold to trust and trusting a timeline that's not mine. So it is that whole, yeah, I don't know. Like she might not ever respond and I can be okay with that. And
Yep.
nothing may happen in August, and I can be okay with that. And I just think in general, I'm trying to lean more towards the trust that everything's going to be fine. And that's part of
Yeah.
the reason I don't know that we're going to be doing once a month book launches in 2025. We probably will because I just love writing, but I also don't feel this need to say this is what we're doing because I love
Yeah.
now I'm understanding that when you allow space for magic to happen, the magic happens. But we so often close down the space for magic
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
control,
We
right?
really
And that's
do. We do. It's like we try to control all the minutes of the day, and then we don't realize that all along there were nudges that were trying to come in, but we hadn't created the mind space
yeah.
to pull them in, to be even able to perceive them, let alone act on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where, when I got so tight into this control and I have to be on the schedule and I have these books and blah, blah, blah. And my husband's like, "You're so stressed. Is this worth it?" I was like, "I don't know." And, like, there's that
Right.
space. But some of it is just like the way you think about it, where you can say, I'm choosing not to be stressed about the fact my kid is sick and I'm going to sit on the couch with them and snuggle him because I'm not going to be able to do that much longer. And
Yeah.
then I realized, oh, if I don't hold the control, I have to hold the trust. And so I will just trust that even though my kid's sick, I'm going to figure this out because I always do. And it might not look the way I wanted, but it will probably be better than what
Yeah.
I have created. And that's what I think my consultant and my bookkeeper are trying to tell me. Like, when you hold so tight and you don't let other people breathe into your company, you lose the opportunity for something better because
Yeah.
they might bring something better that you couldn't. And meanwhile, while they're doing that work, you're up being and you
Yeah.
need to be in order to lead this company. And so it's
I
like,
love that. Oh, I love that so much. That is such a great lesson, and so many people need to hear it. And I think my listeners are going to be like, oh, because I mean, I think about all the authors who are trying to do all the things and they haven't even hired a VA yet. You know what I
uh-huh,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much
But it
good.
goes to show that, like, 10 years, I have a fairly strong reputation in the reading and publishing industry. I've been at this for a long time. I have a lot of books, and I still struggle with that. Like, I've
Yeah.
had this VA for 7 years. She's one of my best friends. I love her so much. And I was just afraid, and I was creating my own proof to affirm my fear. And she wanted the work, and she's doing phenomenally, right? So it's
Yeah.
like even now I struggle with that. So I don't think anyone should judge themselves about it because we all do it, right? It's just new levels, new devils
I
kind
was
of
just
deal.
going to say the same thing. Yes.
It's
We're
ridiculous.
all working on the same. It's kind of like and I talk about this sometimes, but it's the lessons are a spiral. It's like you learn it on the outside of that spiral, and it cyclones inward, and until you really understand it. But it's like you have to keep circling it until it gets so ingrained that it becomes second nature. But sometimes you're learning it an awful
Oh,
lot of
that's
times.
such a beautiful metaphor. I appreciate you saying that because there was frustration for me. It's like, oh my gosh, like I've been in therapy for years over my need for control, right? Like how am I still doing this? But I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it and such a hopeful way because there is an end, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But on your spiral down, you can look up and see how far you've come, right?
Absolutely.
Like you're actually like going somewhere and eventually it will come to a place where you look back and you don't struggle with it anymore and you didn't even realize it. So I appreciate that metaphor
Yeah.
because it gives me something visual when I get frustrated. I can be like, nope, we're good. I have
Yep.
a little more to
Just doing
learn.
another loop. Just doing another loop through the spiral. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no,
it's
I
getting
appreciate that a
smaller.
lot. I
It's getting
appreciate that a lot.
shorter.
I've
Yeah.
been thinking about how to deal with the frustration of how am I still struggling with the same problem? But
Yeah.
that's it. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And we do, and we're learning it all the time with the things that don't frustrate us too, right? We're learning the same types of things over and over again. And it's just the ones that really annoy us that are like, oh, why am I here again? Like, what?
Those are the heart ones, right? Those are the
Yeah,
like really deep ones that really annoy us.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I can so relate to that. Well, Katie, thank you so much. I think my audience has learned so much from you again, and like taken so many cool and valuable insights and mindset tips to be able to really just level themselves up this year and do some really great things. So where again can my audience go to find you, find out more about you, what you do, Alcara, all the things?
Yeah, so katiecrossbooks.com. It's really your best spot. I'm on like Instagram, it's at Casey Writing. I'm on Facebook. You can look up Katie Cross author. I don't know, some Katie Cross author, I think. I don't even know.
Google is your
Um,
friend. Like
yeah, katiecrossbooks.com is really the best spot. There's a contact page, or you can email me. It's katie@kcrosswriting.com.
awesome, awesome. Well, Katie, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. It's so fun to chat with you. We got to do it again.
Absolutely, always.
Thanks so much.
Well, there you have it, guys. Every time I speak with Katie, I absolutely adore speaking with her because we have such a great conversation and so much good stuff comes up. And I love the concept of, when you're getting hung up on things and when you don't know what it is you're missing, but you know you're the problem really when it comes to like what's happening in your life around you, reaching out to those who are close to see what they see, to find out, are they seeing a mindset issue that's hanging up the business, that's hanging up your progress, so that you can get more clarity. I think that's really a key benefit of doing things. And of course, being able to let go and just trust that you get to have and be and do and receive anything you want, right? That this gets to work for you. That energy of trust is a really important component. That and knowing, right? There's a level of knowing inside trust too. It's like you know that this is going to work out some way, shape, or form. You know that on the other side, when things aren't coming together the way you anticipated or whatever, that you get to still be okay at the end of it. It's all going to work out for you. And so when you have that knowing and that trust, it's easier to let go. It's easier to lean into whatever is coming your way so that you can just kind of push yourself through it. And I love that, Katie, whenever those difficult feelings were coming up, that radical confrontation of the feeling is really important too. She mentioned how, when she did ask the question, like, what do you see? And they gave her the answer, she didn't just stick with the, no, I'm not. She went with the, no, I'm not. Oh, maybe I am. Oh, crap, I really am. And then sat with the feeling of what it feels like to know that this is the case so that she could integrate it, receive that information, and then release the information, release the story, release the version of her that was doing that thing, right? And healing through that stuff is so important. Healing through those types of limiting belief and programming that we put on ourselves is so key. And that's part of the reason why I'm putting together the masterclass that's coming up this Friday. So Friday, July 19th, I'm going to be hosting a masterclass all on core wounds and talking about the healing of core wounds and why it's so important for us to be able to move forward and to receive more of what we want and less of what we don't want. Because until we can confront those ideas of what's not working for us, we can't even recognize that we're doing it, right? Katie didn't recognize that her need for control was the thing that was really stopping the flow of energy until she was able to look at it more clearly, right? And then when she shifted it, things were able to then flow again. And it's the same for us. Like if you're seeing patterns that continue to repeat and you keep cycling around, but it doesn't feel as though you're learning it on a deeper level, it just feels like you're back at the same starting point. It might be that you have a core wound or you have a subconscious program that is running that you need to confront in order to let go of. And so that's what this particular masterclass is all going to be about. I know there's many authors who are stuck in this, poverty mentality and they can't seem to find a way out of it. And so for us to be able to identify it and then release it, it's so key. And then of course I got to be weird and I have to add in a layer of ChatGPT and how chat can help you uncover your specific wound without having to, go through books or to do a bunch of different things. You actually can answer questions with chat and it can help you identify those core wounds so much faster. I love it. So if you're interested in joining that masterclass, make sure you get signed up. The link will be in our show notes today, which is authorrevolution.org/244. Of course, I will also have more information on Katie Cross and everything that she's done, so you can find out and link out to her. One other thing I would like to mention is that if you heard Katie talk about being an audiobook narrator for her own audiobooks, I would really love for you to check out Own Voice Audiobooks. It's the course that I just created for you guys, all about how to be the narrator of your own audiobooks. So if you are also the type of person who's like, I have this backlist, it would cost me tons of money to hire a narrator. I have more time than I have money at the moment, or maybe you just are interested in being the voice of your audiobooks because of the fact that you have, number one, you have the control, kind of ironic, I know, but also you want to be able to put the inflection in, you want to play around with the concept of audiobook narration. I walk you through from start to finish, not only talking about, your voice and the programs and the equipment and all the things, but I walk you through the entire process that I use every time I do my audiobooks. And it's something that I've obviously done for a long time. I have audiobooks for almost all of my books at this point, and I'm continuing to do the process, not quite as prolifically as Katie, but at the same point, it's the same type of thing, right? So check out Own Voice audiobooks. I will have a link to that as well in the show notes, because I find that for me, being in control of my entire production line, it's not about the control. It's about, I like the process. I like all of the aspects of it. And like Katie said, when I am narrating my audiobooks, it's like a relief in a sense, because I don't have to put the brain power into writing it, but I do have to put the brain power into reading and speaking it. So it's a different kind of energy. It's a different kind of vibe. Plus it puts me back in the vibe of the story where I'm like, yeah, this is good. I wrote this well, or I really enjoyed this scene, or whatever it is. So check that out. I would love for you to be a part of that program. And of course, if you've got any questions, you can always reach out to me as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed all that Katie had to talk about. Make sure you click over to the show notes to go out and check out Katie some more. Check out her Kickstarters when they are launching again. And of course, have a wonderful week. So go forth and start your author revolution.
Okay, indie author, Carissa Andrews with Author Revolution here. We need to have a chat. I know you want to build a sustainable long-term author career, but you can't do it just by wishing for it. It would be nice, yes, but alas, you gotta do the work. By that I mean you need to reframe the way you look at your author business so that you can write and publish more frequently. With Rapid Release Roadmap, my signature online course, I'll help you learn not only how to make writing and publishing 4 books a year seem easy, but I'll help you master your prolific author mindset so that you can clear away all the negative self-talk that's holding you back. Trust me, I have been there. To learn more about Rapid Release Roadmap, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com. Over there, I'll give you all the insights on what you'll find inside the course. Plus, I walk you through all of the bonuses you're going to get based on the payment option you choose. And yes, there are some good ones in there, even if I say so myself. Once again, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com to learn more and sign up today.